Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to Innovation Unplugged, a production of the ACCS Innovation Center. I'm Houston Blackwood, Workforce Director for this group. Today in studio, I've got Kaliah Dozier, our Director of Marketing and Corporate Partnerships. And on the phone with us by Zoom, we've got Tyler Nelson, who's the Director of Workforce Development at Southern Union State Community College. How are you, Tyler?
I'm doing very well, Houston. Thanks for asking.
Well, we're glad you're here. I know your time is slammed, and I was over at your campus 2 times in the last month, and I saw that parking lot was full both times. And talking to President Shackett, he was talking about the growth of your campus and how maybe 5 years ago it wasn't that way, and he was so excited to show that that growth. And so we're excited to talk to you about that today. You guys have been with us since the very beginning of the Innovation Center and the Skills for Success, and one of our very first CDL students came through your program. I think that was before your time, but you guys have a lot going on over there, so we're eager to get going.
Absolutely. We're doing a lot here over here at Southern Union State Community College, and a lot of that stuff really revolves around what the Innovation Center has been able to provide us. These Skills for Success courses that we're offering are really taking off, and they're causing a huge benefit, not just for our community, but for our school partners around about. Before I came to Southern Union, I was actually a career tech director at Chambers County Board of Education, and that was right around when you guys started offering the Skills for Success as CRIs. Mm-hmm. So I see that from 2 different lenses, really. I see that, from the workforce development side that I'm in now, but I also see such a huge benefit that is offering our CTE students across the state in earning that college and career readiness status.
It's interesting you led with that. We just had a meeting yesterday with the State Department of Education, in the instructional specialists. Is that what they're called?
Yes, CTE specialists. So they're over all the clusters, right?
Yeah, all the cluster directors. And basically it was a sales pitch to get as many of the Skills for Success courses attached to all the CRIs. For example, customer service in the cosmetology. That was not included on the first couple of rounds. And so we did unofficially, it was called the Schmoozapalooza, but Kaliah, the marketing director
said no, we're not calling it that.
But that was the whole point. Is you're right to expand those offerings. So that's cool. So let's just jump right into that, man. We'll talk about your background in a minute. We'll do a different model here. What was that like for you going from CTE director, probably from teacher, CTE director, to then trying to use these CRIs or try to implement the CRI process, and now you see it from this side? What's that been like for you?
It's been amazing. It's really been eye-opening. To be honest with you, when we first saw the Innovation Center stuff dropped for CRIs, everybody wanted to get on it because I'll be honest with you, there are several CTE programs and clusters that have CRIs that were previously recognized that were almost unattainable for the students. A lot of those tests and stuff that followed those previously approved CRIs were really geared for people who were not students. They were geared for straight adults. And it wasn't something that was really toned down to where kids could really understand it. So we struggled getting our kids credentialed. And in a lot of cases, you had to be at the very top of the class to earn that credential. So very few, save for ag. Ag had some lower hanging fruit, but for let's take nursing, for instance. So the CNA, that was tough. Your top students are going to get that. Not every student that goes through that program is going to get that CNA. But I just led a mental health lab today and did this with some CTE teachers, and they were just ecstatic with being able to offer this to their students. They said it's so helpful. It's got real world content. It's exactly what they want to offer their students. And to go back to what you were saying, in the beginning, we didn't know what this really was. We just saw it as a CRI, and even at the state level, they couldn't really tell us, how we could implement this stuff. But as that's filtered down, it's become much easier for the CTE directors really to implement and to really understand. And being exposed to it was especially at the summer conferences and at I think I saw you one time, Houston, at one of the career tech directors conferences at Jefferson State. I think it was a spring conference or maybe I think it was last winter's conference. But I think you were there. Somebody from the ACCS was, and they were talking about skills for success, and it kind of piqued everybody's interest. And then as this stuff started rolling out, we started getting more and more excited. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but these CRIs are graduation requirements for our students.
Right.
It's not the time for playing around is over. You've got to you've got to be college and career ready when you walk across that stage. And a lot of our kids get that college and career readiness status through their CTE programs.
Mm-hmm.
So this has just been a godsend for us, for them in the K-12 system. But to go back to it, I really didn't know much about it, even at the end of my last year as a CTE director. But when I came over as workforce development director and started seeing all of this opportunity in skills for success, I said, we've got to get this out. We've got to make sure everybody really understands that. So I got together with my career tech directors that are in my region. I really started explaining it to them and the benefits to their students. And as soon as we made those connections, it's like my phone started ringing off the hook. How can I implement this? And I'll just kind of tell you what we've done today with our just left from like I said, a mental health worker lab, and that whole lab was just for CTE teachers. So all we did was work with our CTE teachers and get them all to where they've gone through the course, and now they can deliver that content to their students, and really trying to streamline that for them. So, and they're eternally grateful. I can't tell you how many thank yous I got today for that, but now they can take that and it can benefit their classrooms directly. So seeing that through the lens of the workforce has just been eye-opening for me, I guess.
That's encouraging to me. We've done that a few times with the region. Is it Region 2? Gadsden area.
Mm-hmm.
Region 2 CTE, once for food and beverage, once for land survey. I was involved in the second part of that. So those teachers that went through the mental health, did they register and go through the theory and do the whole smorgasbord? Okay. What was
Absolutely.
That's awesome. What was their feedback on the registration and the online piece, and then having the hands-on? What was that dynamic like?
They said it fits exactly into what they're needing to do for their students. And speaking specifically to the healthcare, this aligns, and we really the things that follow that, how to speak to patients, how to interact with people outside of the classroom. It really brings it home and makes it real world, and puts it into a controlled environment where the students can really grasp it, and gets them ready for that. So a lot of the teachers were talking about really implementing this stuff and making it a requirement to go through this before they even step foot in the clinics. So they all said it was great. They went through the course content, and they saw it, and they saw the relevance in there. And they also saw where they could take this and use it as grades in their classrooms. So it already kind of fits with a lot of their curriculum, and it's really a tool to make their life easier.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, you don't get that a lot as a teacher, right?
No.
Usually when the State Department comes down and says, here, I want you to do this, it's just another thing to do. It's not something that goes along with what you need, right? So the teachers were ecstatic about it.
So we need to invite Tyler to the next meeting when we talk to the State Department, because we did have another CTE director yesterday, and I told Matt and Tom, like, having someone that is experiencing offering skills for success courses on a daily basis filled in a lot of gaps, I think, for some of those State Department people that are looking at this from a high altitude. And so I think, too, for those teachers that went through that mental health worker lab, I'm really curious to see, 3 months from now, how they are implementing it for their students, because I'm interested just to see how many students are maybe originally weren't going to go into that, and then they started with a skills for success course, and then maybe it piqued their interest, and then the retention on some of those things. I think there's a lot of perks that we have not even tapped into yet on the data of how the skills for success course is now supporting those students to ultimately fulfill that CTE program that they initially intended on doing. Or maybe they switched because they took 2 or 3 or 4 different skills for success courses. So that is super exciting for us. So please keep us updated on specifically that mental health worker course in your area.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you this, and this is just a little tidbit. Once the course was over for the day, we had, I think, out of the 7 people who were supposed to come, I think 5 showed, and one of those teachers was a friend of another teacher who just said, "Well, I've got just too much to do today," and she was on the phone with her saying, "You really should have come to this. This is fantastic." And she said, "Well, I wasn't expecting that," and she said, "This is just the best training, the best professional development for her that she's been to."
Okay. So,
and even those teachers are acting, or he used the verbiage of professional development for them, which is big.
Yeah, we're slowly getting into on I guess the municipality side of professional development, or it's just professional development for folks that are not high school or open enrollment students. So they have jobs, they have degrees, and we're getting into that. And we talked briefly yesterday about education and instruction and how we might adapt what we do for that.
Arming them with the tools they need to take these courses to their students, and that's what they're utilizing it for right now.
So back up, because I think that as we roll this out, this will air in December-ish,
sure.
okay, maybe early January. But as we look at other colleges and other people that have your role, Tyler, what was that like to get that this offering set up to these teachers so you could have them on site and have them working through the theory ahead of time? How did you organize all of that?
Well, I did. I got with the career tech directors. We had Eric Sewell, our dean, started an advisory with our CTE directors, and it was just them. We had them over for lunch and brought them all together and got them all in one room, and we really explained what we were trying to do. And they were really on board. Once I broke it down for how does this affect our students and how does this affect CTE in Alabama, the career tech directors were all on board, and they really helped facilitate this. I met with some teachers afterwards and really broke it down for them, showed them the content, showed them the lab guides, what their students would learn through it. And they said, this is stuff we're already kind of teaching. This right here augments what we're wanting to do in our classrooms already. So they were really excited about it. Just one point, every teacher that did my mental health awareness or mental health care worker lab today is also signed up to come do community health worker next week. So that's very exciting for us.
What was that time frame from that meeting with the CTE teachers to this lab?
I couldn't understand the first part.
What was the time frame of when that first gathering of all of those CTE directors and the offering of the lab?
So the very first one was in the very first meeting that we had was in October, mid-October, right before.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's been a pretty quick turnaround getting them out. But even before then, even before the mental health worker one that we've done, I've had teachers come out and do the skid steer training with their students too. Now that's not one that they're really going to turn around and take back to their labs and do those, because you have to have very specialized equipment for that. But they were really excited as soon as the news broke. Those teachers were excited to get involved with it.
I just wanted our audience to hear that time frame of how quickly it can happen when you gather the right people and give them the right product.
Yeah, and it has, and from a workforce development standpoint, somebody who's ushering in these programs and promoting them, it has to be easy. You have to make it simple for them. It has to be like, I always use the Chick-fil-A analogy. It's got to be something that you just ask for and it happens. So we try to make it easy. And you guys at the Innovation Center do an amazing job of that. For me to request a course, literally less than 5 minutes. And then before the end of the week, I'm getting an email from you, Houston, saying, "Hey, your course is ready." So I'm able to turn that around really quick. And that the teachers really, really appreciate that.
That's music to my ears. We use a product for registration that is less than ideal. And, we all use the same one for everything. And so sometimes that mechanism gets bogged down. We actually hired extra people to manage the registrations so that it would flow smooth, because we had one person doing it for the whole shebang. So hearing that it was smooth, and I'm going to trust that you mean that. I'm going to pass that on to that whole team, because that's important. And also just the course request thing, getting that back to you quickly, because it's about 4 or 5 different people that touch that process. And for good reason. That's on purpose. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't really send you that email. That was an automation, but I felt it in my heart every time one goes out. I know it's going to somebody. But I'm glad it worked for you. And I'm glad that it happened so quickly for those teachers, because if it had been a delay, they would have been like, maybe the course is good, but that delay is going to get me in trouble in my public school time frame. I can't deal with that. So that's awesome.
Sure.
Really, really good to hear. About that lab, so the mental health worker lab and community health worker lab really are a classroom based. Like, you have to do it in a classroom. You don't have to. You could do it outside, I guess, but it's not something you got to have a machine for or got to go anywhere special. So I know that's good for the school systems to do that, because those classrooms are plentiful. What about the scenarios in those courses? Did they feel the need to adapt those to something specific, or were the scenarios good as is?
The feedback that I got, the scenarios were good as is. And the great thing about this, those CTE teachers, they have labs. So they have the mannequins, they have all the equipment that's already required.
Right.
Is really just there, for them to use. So just talking to them and walking through it, through each scenario today, every one of them said that it was relevant. And that's what you're looking for with CTE, is you want to make it real world. And every one of them said these scenarios were very, very the instructor would fit things to match, scenarios that they faced while they were really in the environment.
Yeah.
But it was all very similar,
That's good. Have you ran the customer service course yet?
I've not run it yet.
Okay.
I have offered the theory to Auburn University, is the ones who've requested it, but we've not done the lab yet.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Alabama Power asked for that, and we built it to their specs. So a lot of those scenarios are, my refrigerator's running. Not really. It's an old joke. Back we used to call people before caller ID, hey, is your refrigerator running? And they'd say, yeah, why? You better go catch it. Anyway.
Dad joke.
Sorry. We can edit that out. Not really, because it's funny. I'm a funny guy. Even though, but like it's based about like, hey, my bill's too high, or my appliance is busted or something. My meter's broken. So it's really like power company, that kind of deal. And we just talked yesterday about, in that industry, all those cluster specialists, like, you got healthcare and ag and business and education training. And they asked the question, could we adapt that? And so we certainly can as we go. So I'm really curious with Auburn University what they're going to want that to look like after they run the first one. So keep that in mind.
Sure. Absolutely.
As you go through, because I would love to hear what they have to say. And Brandy might kill me for saying this on public airwaves, but we certainly can adapt those things and have an industry cluster customer service lab. The theory stays the same, but the lab deploys different scenarios.
What group from Auburn do you know? Like a department?
It's the facilities. It's facilities management.
Okay.
But I mean, the customer service one really should apply to everything,
right?
Because if you're in the health industry, if you're in food and beverage, if you're in ag, if you're in anything, you're going to interact with people, and that customer service is just, I mean, it feels to me like a blanket, like an umbrella that really could apply, especially if you can change the lab to fit that environment. I think it's one that everybody could benefit from.
Well, yeah, I agree completely. And when we built it and I saw it the first time delivered, I thought, well, this is so applicable to and adaptable. So you put that on top of or pair it with the forklift course that's out, where we're going to pilot it in December. I think those two together could really break our internet of just volume and enrollment and completers, because, gosh, 9 out of 10 businesses need a forklift operator, it seems like, or something, and everybody needs customer service. Gosh.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting. Do you have any idea when you're going to run that Auburn University customer service lab?
We've not
Okay.
set a deadline for that one yet. I think they actually just started it. I think it was last week. So
Yeah.
we'll know a little bit more.
Okay.
Probably, I would anticipate it's going to be after the holidays.
Okay. Okay. Sometime in January. Good.
Hmm.
Well, no pressure. I mean, you guys run your own show, so just keep us updated. We're really eager to hear that. What
Hmm.
about a couple weeks ago? You guys had a big agricultural event.
Yes. So I have been in a little bit of contact with Eric Sewell, but correct me if I'm wrong on these titles. So you guys are partnering with Auburn University Rural Partnership Institute, correct? And you are working on an agriculture tech short certificate in hopes of implementing skills for success bundles to satisfy that short certificate. Correct me where I'm wrong or tell us more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. The agriculture. I'm trying to think because we're actually doing two different agriculture things. So I hope I'm not getting them mixed up. But the one that we're doing with Auburn University, I think we're going to be doing a little bit of the carpentry, the
Mm-hmm.
carpentry helper. We're going to be
Mm-hmm.
doing a little bit of the skid steer and excavator with that as well. And I know we're coming up with some other non-credit stuff. Specifically, they were really looking for something that worked with automation. In regard to that. And then, of course, they'll be coming in for the electrical stuff as well. Just trying to, I think a lot of it revolved around poultry houses and
Mm-hmm.
greenhouses and things like that.
Okay. Very cool. I know y'all had a somewhat of a meeting of the minds probably a week or two ago, but didn't know what the rollout for that looked like or kind of the time frame of when you were wanting to execute the short certificate. Short certificate.
Yeah, I think Eric's going to have a lot more knowledge on that than I.
Okay.
But I think we're going to be it's going to come through in stages,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a really hop on hop off style. But I think we have some scheduled for late
Mm-hmm.
spring, early summer.
Either way, I think that whole concept of non-credit side of the house working with college level partnering with a four-year institution and just that whole model is beautiful and how it really should work that way. And so I think if you can take really good notes on all of that, that would, just kind of paint that picture for what it could potentially look like for other schools and just integrating and meeting a student where they
Mhm.
are and really creating that pathway ultimately, because that's what we're in the business of doing. So keep us updated.
We'll do.
Yeah, that would be a really cool model to pass around. Also, and I love the phrase you use, the hop on, hop off model, so folks could get what they needed and not be tied down to even a semester long or a year long or whatever. Because maybe they have some other degrees they just can. So what happens if you've got say you've got 10 courses in that sequence? It was just pick one of those. The agricultural tech, we'll call it that. If you've got 10 courses in there and they only need a couple of them, so they don't meet the whole short certificate, they're not going to complete all of it, but they have the other degrees or other things. Will you award them that certificate anyway if they can
Well,
show?
I think you do essentially what you do in CTE. They can get awarded a short certificate, and give them something of that nature. Have the long certificate if you've completed everything, but a short certificate for each one of those modules.
Okay.
Very similar to what we're doing with Skills for Success. You finish one of these courses, which is relatively short. You can go through, depending on how quickly you want to burn through the that online curriculum.
Right.
But you've got a 2-day lab, and after that 2-day lab, you're going to get a certificate, and it's
Okay.
something that's viable in the workforce. So
Okay.
something very similar.
Okay, I love it. I'm always curious because I've been in non-credit, either K-12 or non-credit my whole career, and
Hmm.
so I've never been on the for-credit side. So I don't understand. What's the PLA? Anyway, prior learning credit. Basically, I'm dumb like that.
Sure.
I don't understand all the implications of that, other than it feels like sometimes they're giving away money, and so I get that, but it's just cool to me to see y'all having so many avenues coming in. That's really neat.
Mhm.
What else is going on over there in general? And I know you do a lot of things that are not just not skills for success. What else is happening at Southern Union? You guys you're growing leaps and bounds, and I see things, different social media. So what's the next big thing for you guys in your department specifically?
So under workforce, the biggest thing that we've got going really is CDL. My phone's ringing off the hook for folks who are wanting to earn their CDL licensure, and that's really the bulk of what we're doing here in workforce. Outside of that, we're working with Golden State Foods to provide some training for their people, some other specific industry training. We're working with Auburn University Facilities Maintenance, but the biggest one that we have is this CDL. And in fact, it's gotten so big that we're hiring another instructor to help keep up with the demand.
Yeah.
The wait list just keeps growing. And to me, if you're not meeting the demand of, the community, you've got to expand, you got to grow with them. And just like our regular college enrollment, non-credit stuff is exploding too. You've got a lot of kids. I'll just speak to Chambers County statistics here, but I want to say about 40% of the students who graduated, they didn't really go to college, and they didn't go to technical school or anything like that. They typically just went straight into the workforce. And to be able to offer them something that's non-credit, and let's be honest, there are a lot of kids out there that are intimidated by the word college.
Of course.
And this is something that offers them, some education. College might not be for everybody, but education is. And
that's a good
quote.
Good soundbite right there. I like that.
But being able to offer them this non-credit opportunity, it's great. And not just CDLs is blowing off the doors, but also our skid steer training. A lot of folks are seeing the benefit and the value of taking the skid steer training within the community. Skid steer, excavator, bulldozer, the real three big ones that are just really busting at the seams for us. But they see that, and the construction that's going on in the Opelika, Auburn, Chambers County area, and they're looking at it as a gateway to get into the construction industry.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly how I think it should be used. But it's giving them a leg up. They're getting to go in there saying, hey, I already know how to drive a skid steer. And this is something that's still in the works, but I'm going to talk about it. I've been talking to another local contractor in our community who's pushing all of his contractors, all of his people that work with him through this land clearing firm, through our Skills for Success program to get them their skid steer, their excavator, their bulldozer, all of that, because it takes a lot of the training load off of him. He doesn't have to, set a machine off to the side and you're gonna lose another person that's given that training. He doesn't have to do that now. He can send them over here to us, and we can get them trained on some really good equipment, and then send them back to him. It's almost like, we've shaved a week or so off of his onboarding time, and tremendously helping him out. So I think this is going to be an excellent partnership, and probably the model moving forward for industry partners. And I really think what's going to happen is this guy's a leader in this community when it comes to construction and things like that. I think what we're going to see is a trickle down effect, and more companies are going to buy into this model as well.
Well, music to my ears, my heart, and the old cartoons. You had Bugs Bunny, his heart's bouncing out of his chest, hearing that kind of thing. That's exactly, if I would go back 4 years ago and say, well, what in the world are we doing with the innovation center?
Why are we doing this?
Why are we here? Now you zoom back to this moment, you think this is it. That kind of proposal is exactly what we're after. Man, and that's really cool. And my next question I actually had written down employer engagement. Meaning how are you doing that? What that looks like. And so now you've got one. How did that guy come to you? How did y'all get connected?
So the previous workforce development director, Greg Lakebold, is tightly ingrained in the Opelika community, and he was speaking to a land clearing contractor, and they were talking about how hard it is to find employees, and he had several folks who would come to him that didn't have the training that was necessary to really go jump on one of these multi hundreds of thousands of dollars for one piece of equipment on up into the millions. And then not only that, but have to take away time from one of these jobs that they're doing to provide the training, and then take somebody away from doing the job to provide the training and all that. And he said, I think I got something for you. I think this skills for success stuff might be up the right, alley for you. And we got on a Zoom and did a call and started talking about it, and went through, what all they're going to learn. And he couldn't jump on that bandwagon fast enough. So he was all about that. And he's got a lot of friends that he's been talking to as well. And really, they want to start up a cohort for all of these folks within the area and get them through this.
So a cohort in the area. Now, when I hear that, I don't know what that looks like, but I think what happens with a lot of industry, that when they're doing the similar thing in the same area, they don't necessarily mean to, but they steal employees. And they'll go from A to B company for a quarter more an hour or whatever, or they get mad at their boss, and I'll go over here to Smith Landscaping, whatever. And so, but when everybody's got the same training, you cut that out. And they've all got the same certificate. So,
yeah, especially if you can provide it with some consistency. So we try to have at least one a month just for those industry partners. And they're like, well, okay, we just hired this new guy. We're going to send him through this program. And several other companies can do the same thing at the same time. You give them some regularity, and it's easy to schedule.
I love that.
Tyler, I'm going to put this plug in there for you with that land clearing firm and their friends. We are working on a skid steer attachment course and looking for task force members to help add relevant content to that. So obviously this would probably be something he's interested in, or people within their network. So we can off air give you some of those links to share. But we've had so many employers say, hey, skid steer is great, but here's all these other things that we want to be able to change. And Houston can talk more about that. But that might be of interest to them that you can offer.
Yeah, what you could,
they've already been talking about that.
Okay.
Come on with it.
So they've already been saying, hey, we need to get into some of these attachments and stuff too. He was asking me about some of the if we could change the course to have some of this attachment. I said, I don't know if we change this course, but maybe something's coming down the pipeline. And so I'm so happy to hear you say that.
Excellent.
Because the skid steer is the Swiss Army knife of tools in construction. You can do anything with it.
Well, I saw one the other day. Actually, there's a series of them. They were all, I guess they were new, but there was one skid steer that had a backhoe attachment or excavator trenching, an arm, boom, and a stick and a bucket. Right beside it was a chipper, and then the next one, I don't even know what the thing did. It might have been something like that dug out small trees. I don't know, it was a wicked looking tool, but same machine, 3 different attachments, and it had to be for sale or something, but I was going by pretty fast. But to your point though, that conversation started with one of the electric cooperatives down in Chad Sutton's area, LBW, Andalusia area. And then it spread to a couple of others. And then just recently we were talking to Robert Tellis at Jeff State. He's a retired firefighter, and he was talking about some of his comrades that went up to North Carolina to do some storm damage. And they had machines, but they were all buckets or an excavator. They had nothing that could grab or nothing that could really maneuver easily. And he's like, man, they were coming back talking about, they had been through a skid steer course and in an excavator course, they were talking about the need to respond quickly with attachments. And so today we're going to send you that attachments task force form, and you can forward that to your contacts and make that happen.
And as soon as we get
excellent.
those
We
people
appreciate that.
onboarded, we will build.
Yeah, and actually, and we're going to do this one a little bit different, and this is a little bit of Brandy's terms, showing you how the sausage is made. But since these guys know how to use all these things already, we'll get them to write out the curriculum, write out the lab plan, and then we'll run a lab and capture that video there, rather than doing it separate. We'll go ahead and get the lab plan built, because they can, especially those guys who have been through the machine, the basic course already, will make that work, so that they can be on the front edge of that. And man, I bet if we got the task form, we could probably get that done by February. I'm just thinking like we could have it ready by February, March. If everybody jumped in, we got a good content. So that's really encouraging to hear. Let's back up a second. You mentioned CDL. You're hiring a new instructor. I wish everybody would. How many different ways are you delivering CDL training, like Class A, Class B, nights, weekend?
So right now, with the two instructors that we have, we can't do the nights and the weekends. So when I came in, the weekends had already kind of been. When I talked with my instructors, they said they were doing the weekend classes for the A's, but the biggest problem they ran into was, you got an entire week between.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the next week was reteaching what they had forgotten through the previous week. So they had stopped that. And I understand that completely as an educator. You go so long without using that skill, and that now you have to reteach, and it would prolong that whole
Yep.
process. So I'm a huge fan of that 3 week intensive, because it really, really helps those students retain that information. I think we have a higher pass rate with that. So I'm a fan of that. I would love to open up nights again to accommodate more schedules for people. But right now, I'm just trying to meet the direct demand. Just the, I
Yeah.
mean, when I tell you I've got a backlog, it's a lot of folks trying to get in there,
Yeah.
and we've got to get them served. We've got to get the community served appropriately. But getting that third person in really expands our opportunities. So what we do right now, Houston, very few are wanting to do the CDLB. And if I'm being honest with you, from an educator's point of view, I'm pushing the A, because you get so much more out of the A with just a little bit more time, a little bit
Yeah.
more buy-in. So I really push you to do the A, because I don't want you to feel in some way shortchanged, like I got the B and, well, now I want to change, I want to go over the road now. Well, now you have to come back and you have to do this again. So I really try to push them toward the A, but I do have some that won't be, right? So I try to set aside some time between those courses, between my A's, to make sure that we're accommodating those who want to be. But during that time, we also do like endorsements and things like that, and restriction removal and stuff.
Okay.
But to answer your question, the B hasn't been a super popular one for us. The A has been just, I mean, it's busting at the seams.
Yeah, I can see that in the enrollment when I look at it. You guys have always been that way since you said, "Hey, we'll do Skills for Success CDL." It's been just a mountain of registration. So I don't know what's going on in that. I guess it's just the construction, or just that you're that hub on the east side of the state going to Atlanta. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's been phenomenal. Watching that for sure. You mentioned that 3 week intensive model. And then you mentioned restriction removal. So do you know that we have a reimbursement for restriction removal? Did you know that?
Well, we don't. No, I didn't.
So and mainly, really, it covers the transmission. So if somebody comes through, they're in that 3 week model and they just can't really master the manual. Once they go and get hired and get a letter from their employer saying, "Hey, this person really needs the manual," then you can put them back through another course. And it's about a week, really, which is typically all they need. If they've tried it before and got some muscle memory, then it works out pretty well for you. It's a lesser reimbursement. It's not the full Class A, but
Sure.
it helps compensate that. And really, really, in bare bones, what it comes about to is about what you would normally have gotten paid if someone just walked in off the street in the old traditional model and said, "Hey, I'm going to pay you $4,000, $3,000 for my CDL." It works to be about the same. It's just keeping that really low cost, and they do have to come back, but it makes it's an offering for you guys.
Tyler, we are always, evolving and starting new courses, and you guys actually asked for machine operator, I believe. I think maybe the title has kind of evolved over time, but if you could, just for listeners, and even really just for listeners, to kind of paint that picture of you guys requesting a Skills for Success course to be built, just because of maybe something that you guys have offered in the past on your campus, or industry partners requesting it, but just what that thought process was for you guys at Southern Union, and then coming to us, having those conversations. If you could paint that picture for us.
Sure. I mean, it's really been a seamless process for us. When it came to needing that specific program machine operator, that was something that was demanded by our local community. We have a lot of manufacturers and industry in our area that deals directly with machine shop things, like, so your lathes, your CNC machining. Some are even doing the additive manufacturing, things like that. So there's a huge demand for it in the area, and that demand's not being met. A lot of the people who are going into these jobs are going in with getting their associate's degrees and moving in, and that's really a bottleneck. So you can only fit so many people through those programs at a time. And the people who are going to work in these industries, sometimes they don't really need to be machinists. They need to know how to work the machine. So we're trying to address the full spectrum of the issue. So that's really where this came about. That, and if I'm saying from a career tech director's standpoint, that's a huge CRI for those machinists, because machinists already don't have a whole lot of CRIs. And that's just another one right there that can really benefit a program like Machine Shop. But to answer your question, to go through that process, we had the demand from industry. We presented that. I think this actually came a little bit before my time. So I'm kind of speaking to what Alvin and what Eric kind of put together. But it's been a pretty seamless process. We approached you guys with that idea. And I mean, people came in, they shot video, they put together the course. They've corresponded with the instructor on several occasions, just kind of going through everything and making sure all of those elements are adequately covered, making sure that everything is taken care of. Now, the part where I stepped in was really doing the pilot for the lab.
Yeah.
And that has just been an amazing process so far too. Just kind of getting all that stuff off the ground and all of that. But as far as it goes with the initiation of it, I don't think I was there for that, but I have not heard anybody say anything about it being a cumbersome process at all.
You mentioned, Tyler, the high school machining options for the that want to be a machinist. How would you implement this course with those high school students? Would you bring them on campus, or do you have a lot of the schools in your area that have the mills and the lathes to run this?
So honestly, they're coming from Chambers County. That was one thing that we're really focused on, was having a very solid machine shop program.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, I think my last year there, we bought a 5-axis milling machine.
Okay.
So it was very robust.
Okay.
We were actually the first high school in the state to have a 5-axis machine. I'm very proud of that. But one thing we ran into is one of the only certifications that they could get was it was very, very difficult for our students to get it. And I can't remember the name of it, to be honest with you. It's leaving me. But the students would go through it and we'd have probably about a 40% pass rate. Because it's not like most of them. They're not designed for kids.
Yeah.
They're designed for professionals in the industry. So people who have a little bit more experience, a little bit more, awareness of what this is. We need more CRIs like this, especially the ones that are showing very basic introductory level to lathe, to machine tooling, to using a CNC machine. We've got to have that because that's an awesome introductory. Not only an introductory lesson for these students, but it's a great CRI to learn. And if we're being honest, these manufacturing programs, especially at the high school level, they're not the most popular. It's hard to get students into them. And to have something like a real world credential that's right there right there in your grasp, that's a huge draw into that program.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's frosting on top of the cake. You're learning something that's real world, but from a career tech director standpoint, it's also an incentive to get kids to sign up for these classes, and that's going to pay dividends in our community. More people with these skills, it's not going to hurt.
No, those machinists and even machine operator, man, they make a really good wage. And it's clean. And just like with the skid steer, getting in that skid steer and running it all off of a little dip or something for the first time and feeling it rock. The first time you get into that 5-axis machine and that thing's got water spray and it's hissing and grinding, and like it's a scary thing. We talked about that the day with Alvin, just getting used to the sounds of the machine. So I'm excited to see that. That's really cool. Final thoughts from you, Tyler. We're long on time, but I want to hear if anything else that we haven't mentioned that's big and pressing from Southern Union.
At Southern Union, and I've talked to some other workforce development directors and seen some of the other things. They don't offer everything that Skills for Success has, because they feel like, it's just too big of a catalog. But the approach I've been taking is, if you're interested, I'm going to offer it. and try to offer as many as we can. I think we got 18 going now, and one of them is our pilot that we're looking at now. So hopefully when that one's through, we'll definitely be offering that. I'm trying to get creative with this stuff and really see how much of the skills for success stuff can we implement into our standing curriculum, because it's not going to hurt it. It's only going to augment it, right? Mm-hmm. So I've been talking with our teachers to see how much we can fit in there. I've been looking at opportunities for our local community. There are a lot. If you really look at today's market, if you're looking at our kids who are graduating high school, and you hear this probably over and over and over on social media, but kids aren't graduating with the skills that they need to really be successful, not just in a job, but to own a home. Yeah. So one thing that we're toying around with right now is offering a camp for people who have already graduated high school in carpentry, plumbing, and electrical, as soon as that plumbing one's through. But that's a skill set that I think every homeowner can use. Being able to provide those skills for everybody. They're not going to be contractors or anything like that, but they're going to go in with a knowledge of how to fix and repair things around their house. They're going to know how to fix a light switch if it goes out. They're going to know how to fix a drain or to run a drain for something if they need to. They're going to learn how to, do a little bit of framing or some woodwork if they need to. And those are skills that I think they're really lacking. And this kind of takes the place of that and offers that for our students. So really wanted to offer that for our community. And I've been talking to some other career tech directors. I'm like, this isn't a bad thing to not just offer your students, but maybe even your faculty. You might have some faculty members who, maybe they teach business and they've never really done anything with their hands. And, this is an opportunity for them to get into that. Just kind of branching off of that, at our mental health worker lab today, several of the teachers were saying, what we want to do? We want to offer this community health worker, mental health worker, as, professional development during our local professional development days, and offer this to our teachers because they need to know some of this stuff too. You never know as a teacher. I was a classroom teacher for more than 10 years. You never know when something's going to happen in your classroom, and having that knowledge of, how to adequately address, bodily fluids in the classroom, stuff like that. It's tremendous to be able to do that and just to have that knowledge.
Well, you're exactly right. And actually, I'll put some icing on your cake here. Destiny Smith, our workforce manager, somehow got the local law enforcement to approve the mental health worker or community health worker as PD for the police force. I'll get you more details on that, but that's where mental health worker and community should be in our first responders, especially those non-EMT folks. But I love all of that. For your homeowner boot camp, I think that's what you're going to call that thing. Don't forget to add flooring.
Absolutely.
Flooring pilot in there.
That would have saved me a lot of money just a few years ago. And, they charge a lot of money to put those floors down.
Yep, and you'll teach people how to do it. That's a really good lab. So we are 57 minutes in, man, and Nick is going to come in here and hit me in the head. So let's, Tyler, we appreciate you, man. I know you're very busy. This has been one of the most dynamic shows we've had. I've taken 3-4 pages of notes. So well done, you. You guys got a lot going on. Been a big partner with us since the day one. So we're thankful to have you on board, and we're glad that you specifically are on board with Southern Union and pushing things forward over there.
Absolutely. Happy to help, and reach out to me anytime.
Will do.
Okay. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Innovation Unplugged. Please go like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.